Hello, everybody. Today is a beautiful day. It's nice and sunny. It was a little windy last night, but it's not today. Um, but today is this doesn't have anything to do with what happened Tuesday. But I mean, there was a big change. To be completely on the record, on election day, I went down to my local voting location. I was there half hour before they opened up the polls. It was cold. It was uh, not just really cold, but uh, it was also dark because of the time change. And I was the only one standing in line. Everybody else was in their car. And then maybe about 15, 20 minutes before the polls opened, everybody started to get in line. But I was the first in line. And if you saw my photographs on social media, yes, I was wearing a Revolutionary War style tri-corner hat. And I went and voted, and I put that vote sticker right on the side of my hat. I was very happy about that. And then that night, when I went out to get my groceries, I wore that hat. So, and I got a couple people, I like that hat, I like that. Got everybody in the patriotic feel. And it wasn't a political statement. It was about I voted. It was to remind everybody, not about who you voted for, but to remind everybody what our country had to do to give us that right to vote. And that was the important thing for me. It was not about party lines, even though some people could perceive it that way. Um, for the record, I voted more Democrat than I did for Republican. And the reason why is because I don't like the fact that there are no term limits. For me, it comes down to if you are not imposed term limits on yourselves, then I will impose my term limit on you by voting against you. And that's what I did. I voted against basically, and actually I did. I voted against every single person, whether it be state or federal, that was serving. And I'm in Pennsylvania. So I'm on the record of I voted against Casey. I did not want Casey in office. He has been in Washington over 20 years. I voted against Scott Perry. He has been in politics at least, or in Washington, I want to say at least um, about 18 years, I think it is. I forget what it is, but basically, Bob Casey, he's gone. Had nothing to do with him being a Democrat. It had to do with him being in Washington way too long and no longer casting his vote on what the people of Pennsylvania want. He casts his vote on what he wants. And I will continue to do that. It doesn't matter whether it's a midterm election or an actual or the main election. Every 4 years and every 2 years, I will continue to vote against whoever is in office. Okay, I'm being very adamant about that too. So that's absolutely clear. It has nothing to do with party lines. Because let's be honest, you have to remind them who they work for. And if they are no long, and if they've been in Washington more than 8 years, they are no longer there for your interests. They are there for their own interests. And that's why I voted the way I do. I'm hearing much more. I've been saying for the last 4 years at least, maybe longer, that we need term limits. And we need to impose them on these people by voting. This is the first time I've ever heard of, even through social media, from the party itself saying we need term limits. And I hope we do get them. But if we don't, always remember, you have the power to impose term limits. on your elected officials. So, because you think about it, okay, Casey is no longer in Washington. Okay, we have someone new. I can't remember who it was who was voting against, who was voting for, or who was running against him. I can't remember off the top of my head. Um, I think it was McCormick. But he's going to go in there. He doesn't have any power. Okay, he has he's going to be he's not on any specific committees because he's in there. He's brand new. Same thing goes with Janelle Stelson. If she had won against Perry, she would have gone down there. Yes, she would have been a Democrat, but she wouldn't have had any power. All she would have been a line vote with the party. And so next year, in 4 years, I'll be voting against Perry again until he's gone. So that's how I voted. You can vote however you want. If you want to be straight Democratic ticket, if you want to be straight Republican ticket, that is your choice. No one can take that away from you. So that's how I voted. Okay, I voted against who was in office. Until I see change, that's how I'm going to continue to vote. So now, obviously, we all know that Trump won. He won by a landslide. He didn't just win by the Electoral College, but he also won by the popular vote. And that has going to have repercussions. We've already seen these repercussions in the way of other nations changing. I mean, keep in mind, all happened was he was elected. All of a sudden, the stock market's doing better. All of a sudden, the EU is saying, "Excuse me, United States, we want to buy your oil, we want to buy your natural gas. We don't want to buy Russia's anymore." In the Middle East, all of a sudden, all these other countries and terrorist organizations are like, we want a ceasefire. We want to end hostilities. All of a sudden, Putin and I don't know whoever got that asshat is in Ukraine. All of a sudden, they're like, we want to come to the table and we want to talk. Well, that's because there's a new sheriff in town. And he ain't going to put up with none of their bullshit. And he's not even elected yet. Hasn't even taken office yet. So I want to talk, of course, how it relates to comic books. Okay, we've all seen how DEI and progressivism and wokeism, and as it's being made aware now that the votes are in, that is primarily what people were voting against. A lot of people were not necessarily voting for Trump, they were voting against DEI and wokeism. And one of those people that's not happy with it is, of course, Mark Wade. He's saying that, he was on record like earlier this year. He was like, I'd rather see the comic book industry burn to the ground than work with the other side to make good comics. He's now stated that he doesn't feel he can write superheroes anymore because of what's happened with this election. Well, Mark, what does your employer, DC Comics, what do they produce? They produce superhero comics. So, I'm sorry, when you have basically the entire country going, this is what we want. Businesses, which are for profit, are going to be like, oh, this is how our customer base is. Look, it wasn't just a narrow margin, it was the popular vote also is saying this to us. As it's even coming out, like apparently California is still counting votes, and it's being made aware that Trump is not getting the popular vote, but he's got 40% of the votes in California. What's mainly in California? The entertainment industry. Warner Brothers, aka the owners of DC Comics. So, with Mark making this statement that he doesn't feel he can write superheroes anymore because he's lost faith in people. He's basically attacking the fan base. And think about it. I can see DC Comic, whether it be private or public, sending a memo to DC going, you need to change, you need to course correct. We need these characters to be, you can't have them so progressive and alienating over 60% of the customer base. Why? Because we're a for-profit company. So, again, if you have, now, what does DC need to do? Okay, they'll probably go and send a memo. Will Jim Lee stand up to Warner Brothers and say, no, 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 we got to continue what we're doing? No, Jim Lee will fold like a deck of cards. Now, here's the other thing also that I'm noticing, that I'm starting to notice, is now the entertainment industry and the comic book industry is essentially the same. Actors are work for hire. The writers and artists are work for hire. But you can, in these businesses, I can see where their lawyers will be coming in and saying you cannot say anything negative about our customers and our product to work for us. Essentially, your social media accounts, you can't use them to attack you. No, you cannot attack our customers. You cannot attack our product with your social media accounts. Uh, Mark Wade, because of your posts, you are a toxic individual and you are not beneficial to our product. Therefore, we will not hire you anymore. You take a look at all of these other creators who are like, who basically aren't even working for Marvel and DC anymore, saying the same thing. So it's one of those where it's like, clean up your social media accounts if you want to get work. So I can even see where social media, they go, where these companies go to someone like Jim Lee and they say, we need new talent. We need talent that respects our IPs, that understand our IPs. Well, the current creative base that they have aren't meeting their criteria. So who do they go to? Well, let's be completely honest. They're not going to ask Graham Knoll and Chuck Dixon to come and work for them again because A, they've burned that bridge. B, Graham and Chuck, honestly, and like Ethan Van Sciver and Shane Davis and Aaron Lepresti, they're making too much money to work for them. Okay? But there's still very talented individuals out there in the independent scene that they can hire. Okay? An example would be Phil Diaz, Vaughn Coleman, John's Longbox, even David Williams and Kelsey Shannon. Okay? Now, why would they go work for Marvel and DC? Well, even if, first of all, let's be honest, with what Phil Diaz and Vaughn Coleman are and John's Longbox are pulling in with their campaigns, working for Marvel or DC could relatively be about the same amount of money. Okay? And these guys are writers. So it would be possible for them to write for their own campaigns and still work for Marvel and DC at the same time. Now, with the artistic talent, that is different. But remember, many times it's all about working with what you got. And it means that you're going to hold your editors to task to make certain that they're like, okay, you need to look at your talent pool that you have, and you need to, if you have to go outside your talent pool, okay, look at some of these creators, some of these artists. Are they going to make more money working for us, or are they going to be making more money doing their crowd funds? Well, maybe for a year and a half, 2 years, they will work for us. We'll give them the clout and create a fan base that they can then go off and have much more lucrative deals with independent comics and crowdfunding? Possibly. But for those 2 years, you're getting a much higher level of product than you currently are getting with what you have. So that's how I'm looking at it. Remember, we've all been saying that the biggest problem in Marvel and DC is the lack of talent. And I don't mean just in writers, I'm talking about in artwork also. They've got to go to, okay, uh, okay, Jimmy Reyes. Jimmy Reyes is a good inker. We've had team him up with this. Right now, as it stands, Jimmy Reyes would benefit from having a regular paycheck. Even though he doesn't own the product, he can produce good, talented work for us. Rob Hunter, the same way with his inking. Imagine if we had like some of these mediocre pencilers, and then Rob Hunter comes in with his inking, and how, especially the way he's going crazy with textures, it could be he considers. So, I mean, I can see like Jim Lee being ordered to find new talent, and the possibility of people that care about comics getting back into comics again. Because let's be honest, is it worth producing 50 books a month that are losing money? What if you cut that in half and you're only producing 15 books a month, but those 15 books a month are sellers and winners. You're going to make more money with those 15 books than producing 50 books. So, and then from there, as sales go, you can get talent coming back into the industry with the understanding and full knowledge that yes, they may become too big that they leave, but until then, they are working for you and they're bringing you back into the customers. They're the ones bringing customers in. More importantly, if you leave on amicable terms, there's the possibility that you won't lose that fan base, and they will back the independent creator and buy your book again on a regular basis. So that's how I'm seeing it. And I mean, is it a pipe dream? Probably, but it doesn't hurt. And you think about it, just because it's a pipe dream and it's an idea that that'll never happen. Never say never. It can always the possibility. So, guys, I'm about done with this video. I've gone about 3 to 4 minutes over on time. So, but I'm gonna keep working on this kitty cat. You can see how I'm being very careful with the line work up here. And that's the reason why I haven't been working on him or in these videos, is because I need to be paying attention when I'm working on here on the face. And that's the reason why I picked this video to work on the cat, because I was working up here in the black area and this spot here where I'm just like hammering away to put in that cast shadow. So I'm liking it. So I like the kitty cat. So I'm going to keep working on it. Working up in this area, yeah, it can be stressful, but I'm just going to take it all one dot at a time.